Yeah, I thought that was going to be a beat drop right there. Welcome in. This is something the same, but something new. The Joe Gaither Show. We are on the Zoo on SI, officially getting broken off. If you've heard us before, emanating out of the Bama Central channels, emanating off the Walsh Riding Network, we are now flying solo. The Joe Gaither Show on the Zoo on SI. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon. You can find my friend Joey Van Zummeren at JoeyVZ_ on the Twitter machine. You can watch us on the Mizzou Central YouTube channel as well. And I am at Joe Gaither 6. We appreciate everybody who has subscribed, rated, and reviewed the show, who have listened to us on previous episodes or previous iterations. But now we're flying solo. Joey, how we doing today, man? How's your Tuesday?
Yeah, I'm doing great today. Slept in a little bit, so enjoying the summer. How are you doing, Joe?
I'm doing very well as well. It was a slow morning. We saw EA Sports put out some news, and we're getting ready for the new EA Sports video game. We're covering all kinds of recruiting right now, waiting for SEC Media Days, kind of in that lull. First and foremost, let's react to just something that happened last night. The SEC becomes baseball champions again. Were you pulling for A&M or were you pulling for Tennessee?
I had no preference in either. My mind was in the NHL finals. If anything.
Oh my gosh! The last 3 minutes of the hockey game was like, how would I describe it? Was like, and look, I'm not a Panthers fan, and I'm not an Oilers fan. I have friends who pull for the Panthers, so I was kind of on their side of things. But it was like riveting. It was riveting, and I was on a knife edge the entire last 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you almost get sick to your stomach, even though you have no rooting interest in it, but just the exhilaration of it all. I think playoff hockey is fantastic every year.
Does any sport do the championship trophy presentation and kind of celebration better than hockey?
That's a good question. I used to like what the NFL did, where they had the song playing, and I think they still play the song. I used to play that even in Madden when I won my Super Bowl championships. I would keep that up on YouTube. But then, I don't think they do this anymore. They used to have, they have the main stage, and they still do that. But then they'd have, a legend from the host city, deliver the trophy, and they'd walk through, the lines of all the players, and all the players would kiss the trophy, and it was fantastic. I don't think they do that anymore. So I think NHL takes the crown now.
Yeah, so I just enjoy watching the captain get the cup and skate around, and he starts passing it around. I guess the main aspect that struck me last night is how late in the presentation the owner gets his hands on the trophy. And then, I mean, look, owners have their place in sports for sure, and athletic directors, in our case, for college football and for college athletics. But come on, let the captains, let the quarterback, let the running back, let the point guards, let the pitchers have the trophy first. They're the ones who's bled and sweat and poured their heart out for that trophy.
Absolutely.
Oh, you want to talk about recruiting? Let's start right there. Let's start with Eli Drinkwitz. He made a little bit of news. With some of his official visits. It's been official visit season as the NCAA dead period started yesterday. So all the college coaches get a little bit of a break before they start fall camp. But Eli Drinkwitz became the next Brian Kelly. Let's debate this. Brian Kelly twerking with the tight end last year. Eli Drinkwitz playing air guitar with the offensive lineman this year. Come on, this is much to do about nothing. What do you think about Brian? I mean, Brian Kelly obviously was out of his element. I thought Eli Drinkwitz looked right in his element playing the air guitar.
1,000%. I can't remember. I think he said it was Creed that he was at least imagining that he was playing. I think this is Eli Drinkwitz at peak himself compared to Brian Kelly, who tried to fake a Southern accent when he first got the job with LSU and all of his antics there. I think this is very authentic Eli. And I think he can have a good time. And I think right there, I mean, what you see with him playing the air guitar there is pretty much why he has so much success, that people or his recruits can sense the authenticity coming through.
I'm looking at 24/7 Sports, and I'm seeing Missouri has had 5 commits in the month of
Mm-hmm.
June. You're going with Dylan Williams, a safety. You're going with Sean Terry, a wide receiver. You're looking at Jamarion Morrow, an athlete, probably a wide receiver, running back type. And then let's see, 2 more. Mark Manfred, a cornerback, and the guy at play, Henry Fanuku, offensive tackle. So you're gaining momentum on the recruiting trail. What's it going to be for Eli Drinkwitz? What's the next few targets, or what's it going to take to go from 18 commits? Is that what I just saw? 12 commits up to 13, 14 more.
Yeah, they had a pretty big weekend this past weekend where they had quite a few players on campus for official visits. Some of those were guys that had already committed. Sean Cherry, the wide receiver, was one of them. Matt Zollers, the quarterback as well, was there. And then there was quite a few, I know, receivers. I believe Mark Manfred, the recent cornerback commit, was one of those visiting as well. So it definitely feels like it's picking up right now, as is for a lot of other schools. But yeah, I mean, they're doing a great job this summer, and it really feels like it's just beginning. And I wouldn't be surprised. It looks like the wide receivers, like I said, is going to be the next group here that they're really going to hit deep. And they're also, I think the one thing that sticks out to me about the 12 commits so far is the offensive line commits. That's something I couldn't tell you how well they recruited pre-2022, but I know that the offensive line was certainly not their best group in 2022. And then in 2023 really took a step up, and now recruiting those guys well. They got Jack Lane from, I want to say, the Kansas City area, who's top Missouri prospect. Or no, Eureka, Missouri.
Eureka!
Top prospect in the state of Missouri, offensive lineman Henry Fanuku, who was, serenaded with the guitar playing from Houston. I wonder, I think a big part of that is the offensive line coach who was brought in after the 2022 season, Brandon Jones. He was a coach for Houston for a long time, and I would think that had at least something to do with Fanuku coming to Missouri. Fanuku is from the Houston area as well. So doing great with those two offensive linemen so far, too.
All right, so one of our recent visits, we talked about Eli Drinkwitz's work in the transfer portal. You got a couple guys from Ohio State. You got a couple guys from Clemson. You picked in the transfer portal pretty well. How important is recruiting high schoolers to Eli Drinkwitz and the Missouri program? Because you're not, no disrespect to Missouri, you're not in that upper echelon yet of Ohio State, Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama, where you're picking and choosing 5 stars. How important is recruiting to Eli Drinkwitz, or is it kind of a mixture of recruiting and the transfer portal? We got to kind of just take what we can get and patchwork the best team we can.
Right. Yeah. It's obviously a mixture, as is for any other program, but you are certainly right, Joe, about they don't have the history quite yet, the reputation that Alabama, Michigan have for where guys can instantly just see the name and want to play there for that team. But they are trying to build that. And I think the high school recruiting is probably more important to them than some other schools at the top of the SEC right now. And I think even more important with it is just retaining those players year in and year out. That's one thing that Eli is always talking about throughout the season. You have to recruit your whole entire roster throughout the season to make sure that they don't leave. And I mean, I think a big part of it is also with high school recruiting, locking down those borders, something that Eli likes to say all the time. That was his mission when he first got to Missouri, and he's done a great job year by year improving on that. Because if you look at the top prospects in the state of Missouri from about 5 years ago, they're going to Ohio State. They're going to all these other top schools. And Missouri doesn't show up until prospect number 5 or 6. Now you look at it, and obviously they're not completely locking down the borders quite yet. But last year they get Williams Winery from Kansas City, one of the top prospects in the whole class, the defensive end. He'll be on campus this fall. The year before, 2 years before that, Luther Burden from East St. Louis, which is technically on the Illinois side, just like I am. And really improving on that year by year. So I think Missouri recruiting those in-state guys is a big part of it. And just I think that can also play a part in retaining those guys year by year just because they're playing close to home.
All right, let's keep it on the recruiting train just a
Mhm.
little bit when talk about Matt Zollers. Matt Zollers had a pretty nice little week at Elite 11. I know obviously Elite 11 is not the be-all, end-all for anything. It's just a quarterback competition, not really any bullets flying at you with live action. But to have the Missouri quarterback commit, Matt Zollers, finish, depends on where you looked. On Three Sports has him at number 5. The Elite 11 ranks him a little bit higher, a little bit lower, and so does 24/7 Sports. So you finished in that upper echelon of quarterbacks. You had 19 quarterbacks out there. George McIntyre, the Tennessee commit, did not participate due to injury. They should have had 20, but they only had 19. Having Matt Zollers finishing, right in that Juju Lewis number 1 quarterback range, how exciting is that for the Missouri fan base to say,
Yeah.
okay, the future is really bright?
Yeah, it's interesting with quarterbacks because there's we obviously know Brady Cook's going to be the starter this year and possibly the year after that. And then it's between Aiden Glover, Sam Horn, and then Matt Zollers on who could take the reins after that. Glover is an incoming freshman this year. Sam Horn is going to train his redshirt junior season, I believe. He's going to miss it all with Tommy John surgery that he's recovering from. But as far as Zollers, I think you got to be excited about that and the fact that Missouri is now able to recruit a top end quarterback year in and year out, which every top program wants to do. Got to be really excited with Zollers. I think he'll be able to develop really well with Eli there. And I mean, you see it, and even just the clips shared from Elite 11, and then obviously his high school tape too, just his natural athleticism. So if you can start out with that and then find out all the other technicalities of being a quarterback in the SEC later on, especially if you have a year or two to sit, like Zollers likely will, it can be a really exciting prospect.
Almost 3,000 yards passing as a junior, 37 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That's pretty exciting for a program that's it seems to be offensively driven.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the actual quarterback this year, Brady Cook. One of the things that I'm going to do on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central very soon, probably today or tomorrow, is rank all 16 starting quarterbacks. So I need your help. Don't want to just go ahead and default Jalen Milroe to number 1 because my homer, boom, 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 boom. Oh, he's amazing. He's a mile down the road. Where's Brady Cook going to fall into this? You got Carson Beck. You've got Nico Iamaleava. Quinn Ewers needs his respect as well. Jackson Dart needs his respect as well. But Brady Cook's no slouch. Brady Cook, it was the engine behind really he and Connor Schrader, the engine behind the 11-2 season. I mean, strong defense as well, but offensively, he was really the field general. Where are we putting Brady Cook? You don't have to advocate for him if you don't want to. Always disagree if you want to disagree. But if you are his advocate, where does Brady Cook rank in the SEC amongst the other starting quarterbacks?
Right. I don't like getting into the whole comparison game, but I do think he does sit pretty comfortably in that 4, 5, or 6 range, kind of in that same area as Jackson Dart. And I think there's definitely room for mobility for him this year. And I think the biggest thing I would be watching for as far as moving him up in the rankings for this upcoming season is just him having a clutch moment. And I think quarterback rankings and how the world talks about quarterbacks is kind of faulted. And I think it's lost a lot of times that it is a 11-person game. But we're 22. But I do think Brady, for all that he accomplished last season, did not really have one big moment, at least in SEC season. I think he played fantastic, probably the best game of his career in Kansas State. But you look at the LSU game where he threw an interception late, made some mistakes that caused him to lose that game late in it. And then same thing with Georgia. That game was right in front of them, and then Brady Cook threw an interception to the defensive tackle in the final minute there to ruin any comeback efforts. So there's really not been a moment where he's fully stood up and won the game for Missouri. And even in the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State, he did have a fourth quarter touchdown that they probably wouldn't have won the game without. But that game, more than anything, was a war of attrition. It wasn't like he was going off against a stellar quarterback or anything. So, like I said, I think he'd be happy right at 5 or 4. But he can definitely has a lot of room to earn this upcoming season.
So we'll see where he falls for myself. I think 4, 4-5 sounds about right. I mean, Quinn Ewers seems like he's probably the default number 1.
Yeah.
I think, and then we'll get. Look, this might upset my Georgia fan family who grew up Georgia fans, but I think Carson Beck is so damn overrated. Maybe that's just my own bias. So we'll try to work through that as we consider things. Jackson Dart, Ole Miss's schedule looks very favorable. He could end up looking very, very good at the end of the year. And then I just have this weird belief that Kalen DeBoer is going to take Jalen Milroe to another level. But you can't look. Brady Cook's going to be for real. But if he is for real, he's got a really challenging road ahead of him due to, or at least based on what we saw today from EA Sports. We don't care really what video games have to say, but it's talking season. Yep. And EA Sports today put out their top 25 most intimidating places to play. First off, no Faroe Field.
I'm surprised there hasn't been more anger on my Twitter feed about that. But I think with all due respect to the Mizzou fan base, it's been a while since there's been an iconic game there. I mean, the Kansas State game was fantastic, and that was a tough environment to play. And I know a lot of the crap they got this past year about that game was that there was a large showing of Kansas State fans there, and Kansas State fans like to claim that they only sold out that game because of the fans traveling from Manhattan, and that was kind of a running joke even now. Whenever like Mizzou softball sold out for the playoffs, I know Mizzou fans said, "Oh, thank you, Kansas State fans, for traveling again." So they have fun with that, but I definitely think in the next few years, I mean, with have some more iconic games there, especially this season, there's plenty of room and opportunity for that, and that goes again to my point with Brady Cook, plenty of opportunity for some iconic moments there after Oakfield. They definitely did a great job this year, I believe. After I think they sold out. Probably besides the first 2 or 3 non-con games, sold out every home game besides those 3.
All right, so getting to the EA Sports list, Missouri has a very challenging road schedule. And we've talked about this on our segments before. If you missed any of our segments, I'm probably going to try to be breaking them out and putting them into our this platform, the Joe Gaither Show on the Zoo on SI. But if you want to hear them before I can break them out, they're all on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. We talked about the schedule, breaking it down game by game by game, and we talked about the importance of the Texas A&M road trip, how it's really the first major test of the year and how it might be making or breaking the remainder of the schedule. Well, EA Sports puts Texas A&M Kyle Field as the number one most intimidating environment in college football. Do you have any complaints about the list? You've got Texas A&M at number 1. You've got them on Saturday, October 5th. You got Alabama at number 2. You got them Saturday, October 26th. And you get a couple of weeks off, and then you're back into the list at Williams-Brice Stadium, South Carolina. It comes in at number 15, November 16th. And then the next week, you're going to Mississippi State. They come in at number 25. So you got, 4 teams in the top 25 as far as difficult environments to play in. How do we feel about the maturity of the Missouri team and Eli Drinkwitz being able to, tune out the noise, literally, and play their game in these tough environments?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we talked about it again. Last year the toughest environment they played in was at Georgia. But other than that, they got to play LSU at home. Didn't have to travel to Florida. Had a fairly not a tough environment in most of the road schedule. I guess they did play Arkansas, and I believe that's only, besides Georgia, the only team in the top 25 here. And I think half the fans in Arkansas left before the second half even started, and that one, so they didn't really get to experience that 23rd ranked environment there. But yeah, I think the maturity is going to be a big part of it, and just getting used to it, and the fact that Texas A&M comes before the Alabama game, will probably appreciate that and to have that experience first off. But it's really something really going to be a new experience for them playing in an environment as loud as that with so many people. It's in the Texas A&M Stadium around 100,000 capacity.
Yep.
So it's going to be a tough one. I think you got to love that you have Brady Cook going into his third year as a starter now to have that experience with him. But I do think they have a lot of experience really, and I think that's going to determine a lot of their starters early on. They have a lot of promising young players, but they also have a lot of experience coming in through the transfer portal, and I think those guys are going to get the starting nod early on at least before they can really figure out their identity on both sides of the ball.
They say that when the Texas A&M faithful, I've never been out there. I'm looking forward to being out there at some point on the beat. I was the next man up last year for Alabama's road trip, so I didn't get to go, which is A-okay. But they say the upper decks, when they lock arms and do the 12th man swaying, that the stadium itself moves, which is just creepy as all get out. Look, I don't want any tragedies or anything like that, but like it just makes me think, oh my gosh, what if the stadium falls down and all those people fall down on top of each other? It just makes my skin crawl. I can't wait to like experience it myself. So I think Texas A&M rightfully in that top number one for EA Sports. I think the top three argument. I think you can make some arguments for other universities as well, but A&M has to be there. So you need to make.
I think you should volunteer if you have a free weekend. Maybe you're in Alabama's bye week to be one of the yell leaders at Texas A&M.
I can't. I don't have no shame. I have some shame. Just a little, not enough like to be considered professional, but I have enough shame to not put on the overalls and talk about hey, you doing the motions and gosh, what's the guy? There's a name that they use for the generic. It's not John Doe, no, but like basically the yell leader tells stories, and he's saying, and John Doe went down to the store, but it's not John. I think it's Little Ag or something, or Billy Ag or something. It's like, dude, look, I know they're a military agricultural institution, and very nice academic record. Look, if you have to mandate. You have to have a date to go to the games, and that date has to kiss you after every score. Maybe you don't have enough game here to be in college.
There's a lot of interesting things about Texas. And when we went down to the Cotton Bowl, I know they have like this wasn't a Texas A&M thing, obviously, but like the cheerleaders that dress up in like the American outfits too, like they have a specific name. And at first I was like, what are they cheering for? Like America? Like they're clearly not Mizzou or Ohio State cheerleaders. And I had my friend Matt, who also writes for Mizzou and is from Texas, though, knew all about them. There's a lot of interesting lore about just Texas culture, and especially within college football.
Well, you're going to have to make that one of your road trips this year so we can hear about how crazy it is. I know our friends at Bama Central told me about it last year, but I just always love to hear. Environments make college football, so it's going to be a lot of fun this year.
I cannot wait.
What you working on with Mizzou Central, with the Zoo on SI over the next week, and then we'll catch up with you next week.
Yeah, so over the next week, we're finishing up our early opponent previews over there. Me and Michael Stamps are pumping those out. I just published my one on South Carolina yesterday, learned about Lenore's Sellers. We'll have Mississippi State and Arkansas later this week. Today I put on my transfer profile on Marcus Carroll, the transfer running back from Georgia State. So we're still pumping out a lot of content this offseason, and then it will come up quick in late July. We'll have our position previews, and then all of a sudden we'll be heading to Columbia for summer practices. So it's starting to pick up. I can't wait.
All right, we got a month to go until fall camp gets started, but you want to cover it all, or you want to follow it all on the Zoo on SI right there with our friend Joey Van Zummeren. Joey, thanks for your time. Make sure you follow Joey at JoeyVZ_ on the Twitter machine. Thanks for your time, Joey.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joe.
No problem. That's Joey Van Zummeren of Mizzou Central, the Zoo on SI. On a new segment right here. We're starting a new podcast. We have done segments before on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. We're now doing them all broken out on the Walsh Writing Network. Each of them will be their individual segments. We'll do them weekly, so we'll have weekly visits with Joey Van Zummeren and other contributors for the Zoo on SI. Can't wait to get to know kind of the new staff as they get enrolled in school this fall. And we're going to be following Missouri. Look, Missouri is going to have Missouri's going to have a lot to say about this college football season, whether they're in the college football playoff or not. They have a huge schedule, and they're going to have a lot to say about how the end of the year shakes out. So stay with us on the Joe Gaither Show on the Zoo on SI. You can always subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Amazon. You can follow us on YouTube on the Missouri Central YouTube channel, and you can always find me at Joe Gaither 6.